Dumbass. Charge your phone. What's up, everybody? It's your boys, Lance and Titus. Um, I saw Deadpool and Wolverine today, and Titus saw it on Friday because he likes to see things when they come out. Um,
Bait, but proceed.
and I wanted to do a review of it because I feel like this movie deserves it. But before I get into that, I wanted to talk about um Titus. He's kind of got me into Marvel. Um, like I don't know, because he's a big Marvel fan, and I grew up with DC. I was always a DC guy, but even then, I don't really know that much about the lore. But Titus has got me into Marvel, and out of everything Marvel, X-Men has become my favorite thing so far. And I mean, I like I like the Avengers, but um, so I was really excited for this movie. Um, I've seen most of the X-Men. Well, I'd say about half. I haven't seen all of them. I've seen a good portion of them though. The Fox films, and they're decent for what they are. I feel. Um, and of course and MCU. Well, I like the first three phases of it, but it's getting worse and worse. So I was kind of apprehensive about this movie. So was Titus. Um, but I saw it. I didn't think it was too bad. What's up, Iron? How you doing?
How you doing, Iron?
Uh, so we're gonna just offer our thoughts on it. And since if you can't read, the title says spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, you probably should not watch this because we're gonna spoil the holy hell out of it. And yeah, so Titus, what is your overall consensus on the movie?
Um, my whole consensus of it, I
Well,
think
your
that
overall feel of the movie.
my feelings towards the movie is that I believe that it is a send off to every Marvel movie preceding the MCU. That's why although this is related to the MCU in a very minute way, but it really is its own entity. It's not really a MCU movie, I'd say. But
Right.
beyond that, beyond the sentiment of just being a send off and a kind of a love letter to everything before the MCU, I think with the story being told between the characters of Deadpool and Wolverine, I do think for the most part it's a decent story. I think more could have been done with the whole dilemmas of both characters, like Deadpool having to prove that he matters and Wolverine having to come to terms with who he really is as an X-Man. I think there was something there, but a lot of it kind of felt sacrificed for the sake of action or comedy. And it's not to say that the movie was
Right.
bad because of that, but I just think that this is kind of a step in the wrong direction. I think there could have been a lot more built upon good concepts you had for the characters, but it just was not used to the fullest extent. But beyond that, I mean, as I said from the beginning, I just think that's a perfect love letter to everything before the MCU, and it kind of I think the realm of the forgotten, the whole void is an interesting thing because all the characters in there are forgotten, and the
Right.
TVA regard the MCU as the prime timeline. The timeline, as they paraphrase, the only one that fucking matters. And it's kind of
Right.
a sad thing from a meta perspective because movies like Blade, to my knowledge, is the first successful Marvel movie. And if Blade is in this realm of the forgotten, it kind of is a sad sentiment that the first of which was success from Marvel is now forgotten because MCU's here. I just think it's kind of
Right.
a moment. It's like for it to take a moment to reflect on everything that came before, because without the other movies, even the ones that aren't the best, like 2003 Ben Affleck Daredevil, the movie may not be the best, but it is truthfully what we had to get to the MCU, or at least the first half of the MCU when it was good. And let's not act like the fucking MCU's all gems, but
Right.
no, that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean Titus is right. This movie is not just a send off to the Fox films. It's a send off to the Fantastic Four Fox films. It's a send off, well, except for the 2015 one. That one's not really. There's really no references to that one. But the original Fantastic Four duologies, it's a send off to that. It's a send off to Blade, Elektra, Daredevil, all those are early films. Hulk, the 2003 Hulk, not as much. I know people were Hulk is in it, but he's in it for like a split second. It's when Deadpool was looking for all the different Wolverine variants, and he comes across the one that fights Hulk, the in his yellow and brown suit. But and even then, from the look of it, it really just looked like you know Bruce Banner Hulk is what it looked like. Um, but other than that, all those other movies had a reference in some way, shape, or form. Um, so even there was even an unproduced Gambit film that was going to be in the Fox universe. The actor Channing Tatum, he's in it as Gambit, and even that had a reference. Well, I guess that in itself is a reference. So, um, and then there was Chris Evans, Human Torch was in it, um, which was kind of cool. Of course, Deadpool is making jokes about how he's also Captain America. Ha ha ha. But let's talk about the jokes. The jokes I felt were look, I don't like the first two Deadpool movies. I really don't. I just think they're dumb. I don't really think they're funny for the most part. I mean, there's some jokes that are funny, but I don't know. And in this movie, I mean, again, there were some funny jokes, but I didn't really see much of it as that funny. Um, what do you think, Titus?
For me, I'm kind of like with you on like, the first two Deadpool movies. I don't really particularly find those like very funny. I kind of find like the one joke in Deadpool one funny with the whole Francis thing, like Ajax being, oh, dude, your name's Francis. But in this movie, though, I'd say that a lot of the comedy, and this is like a just Deadpool tradition. It's like it's crude humor, but like I feel like in here is like there's a lot more funny. But it's just the thing was kind of weird though is that like it's like other characters are more funny than like Deadpool is. Like Blade and Gambit, I feel like their crude sense of
Right.
humor was like a bit more funny because with Deadpool is which is part of his character. Like he has rapid fire jokes. Like he is just being annoying. And I think I'm not like a damn comedy expert or nothing, but just like I feel like for a good joke, you just kind of have to like let it marinate for a bit. You can't just like fucking like just go off because you don't really have a minute to think about the joke itself. You don't really have a minute to laugh. You get a joke and you're handed the next joke right after it. But I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Right.
I'm not an expert on comedy, but I just think that like you shouldn't have just rapid fire fucking joke like one after the other. That's why like
Right.
Blades and Gambit's jokes. Like I ain't gonna like Gambit. He had a rapid fire joke. I ain't gonna lie. When he had said like Mon ami, when I shot my daddy dick, I knew I was ready. Like that was funny. Then he said like so he said some other shit about like him getting out of his mama's womb, and like I didn't really find that as much fun. They didn't really stick with me because it's just like it's basically the same damn joke, just like was just said. Is I don't know,
Right.
but for the most part, it was kind of funny.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why I don't really like the Deadpool movies is in terms of the comedy, the they're just not because yeah, the jokes are so rapid fire. It's like I don't know. I just find film Deadpool annoying. I've not read comic Deadpool, so I'm not gonna comment on that version of Deadpool.
I mean, he's annoying in the
But
comics too. Like that, it is kind of like truthfully, accurate that he is like an annoying character. Like he makes jokes to annoy. It's self indulgent. It's just in the movies, it's not really. It's not. It doesn't translate very well. I'm not even saying like the
right,
comics, like the jokes he makes in the comics aren't really that funny all the time. They can be funny, but like a lot of time they kind of suffer like the same issues like the movies.
interesting. Um, the film had a lot of cameos, right? Of course, we've already mentioned a few. Blade. I mean, if we could try and name them all, we got Blade, Elektra, Gambit, Human Torch. Um, I don't count Cassandra Nova, cameo, but um, Juggernaut, Toad, Pyro. Um, what else am I missing?
Lady Deathstrike, Bullseye, the Russian, Psylocke,
Psylocke, yeah. Um,
um,
Azazel.
Azazel, yeah.
Um, comic accurate Wolverine.
Yeah,
That
like
was
a
that
bunch of
was
different
that.
variations.
That's a good one. Oh yeah, there was a bunch of Wolverine variants. Comic accurate Wolverine, meaning in terms of his height.
Yeah, he was just Hugh Jackman with like really lanky arms, but like tiny ass legs. That shit, that looked hilarious.
Yeah, that
But
that that was definitely funny.
but there's Patch, there was Age of Apocalypse Wolverine.
Is that the one on
John,
the X?
you said what?
Is that the one on the X where he's on?
Oh no. Age of Apocalypse Wolverine is the one with the metal arm. Is like the one
Oh,
with the
okay.
giant here, like the one that was like in the black and red. I don't know if you remember. He's like in a burning fucking alleyway.
Oh yeah. I remember now. I remember now.
Yeah, that's Age of Apocalypse. I find the Patch one just be like kind of funny because Deadpool literally enters the casino and all he says is, "Hey Patch, is that you?" And he just like turns and just stabs him for no reason. Like
Yeah,
it
that,
literally
that was funny.
that shit made no fucking sense. Or they were like the old man Logan where he's just sitting on the porch and just blast him with a shotgun.
Yeah, that was a good one. And then you had the yellow and brown Wolverine where he fights Hulk. Wasn't that his original suit? He had a red and her yellow and brown
Nah,
costume.
that wasn't his original. That was the costume that John Byrne had came up from. His
Oh,
original
okay.
was like the one he has in Giant Size X-Men with yellow and blue. But his debut in Hulk, it was that yellow and blue, but he had open eye holes. It wasn't like white patches.
Oh, okay. Okay. And for those who don't know, if you're not a comic fan, Wolverine, he has a very interesting story in the comics. He was originally a Hulk villain, like a villain of the week type thing, back in the what 60s, late 60s, early 70s, I think he came out.
It was
Um,
the mid 70s, I believe. Because that's when Giant
well,
Size came out, I believe.
did it come out the same year?
Nah, not in the same year, but it's like relative time. Definitely wasn't 60s though.
Oh, okay. Well, Giant Size X-Men, that is a book that they put out in 1975. So it first brought Wolverine into the X-Men. Um, Chris Claremont, well, he was uncredited as a writer, I think. He did make that, but he was uncredited for it. Um, if you know, it's a huge history with Wolverine and the X-Men, but in other words, Chris Claremont's the guy who made X-Men popular, and then he's also the guy that made Wolverine kind of who he is today. Um, but anyway, then there was a Henry Cavill. He was in it, or Cavill, how you pronounce it.
Mm,
He played a Wolverine variant. That was hilarious. I was
right.
really hoping that Deadpool would make a Superman reference, but he didn't. Um, who else is in it? Of course, every Deadpool variant you could think of, right? Headpool, Cowboy Deadpool, Nice Pool, Dog Pool, Lady Deadpool,
I,
Kid Deadpool.
I was gonna say something
Uh,
about the Deadpool core when like we were talking about like kind of like the movie itself is that I feel like a lot of the Deadpool core were just kind of best Canadian film, but I feel like a lot of Deadpool core were just kind of like thrown as like marketing. They didn't really serve
right.
any real purpose. It's like aside from like Nice Pool is like the expensive like jokes, and I guess Dog Pool was also the expensive jokes. But like Lady Deadpool, that was like advertised. She literally said nothing but one line, and I
That's true.
honestly went into the movie thinking that the Deadpool core would be serving a bigger purpose in the movie, which I turned out
Right.
being wrong. They just were there for the action scene. They were there to be cannon fodder for Wolverine and Deadpool to have their big fucking action sequence, which I did not
Right.
like that. Like I thought the
Yeah.
scene was cool. I just the utilization of like the alternate Deadpools. I thought was just like that's pretty weak.
Right. I what I thought was gonna happen, looking at the trailers or whatever, is Deadpool and Wolverine, they were gonna get in like this situation where it's like, oh, how are they gonna get out of it? And then you have an army of Deadpools come in. I don't know, kind of like an in game thing. That's what I thought was gonna happen, but no. Um, the only thing and I don't really like it, to be honest with you, that this is what they use, but the whole point of that scene was so Wolverine can put on his cowl, um, and have a cool fight scene. I think it would have been better if when when Wolverine and Deadpool, when they teamed up with X-23. Oh, by the way, she's in it. Well, we knew that from trailers, but that's another, kind of cameo. X-23, Elektra, Gambit, and Blade, when they were teaming up with Wolverine and Deadpool to attack Cassandra Nova, I wish he'd put on the mask there, his cowl. I thought that would have been really cool for that, because that was the best fight scene in the movie for me. Was when all six of them are fighting Cassandra's goons. Um, I wish that was the scene where it happened, but it didn't. And really, that whole just the whole like section where Deadpool is using Nice Pool as a shield, and then they fight the Deadpool core. I feel like that was just thrown in there just to give them another cool action scene and for an excuse to have the Deadpool core in it. It really served no purpose in the end in terms of narrative because the Deadpool core then distracted by that Peter dude who also shows up in a Deadpool cop. I don't know. I thought it was just honestly a bad scene. I'll be honest. It was
I
pointless. And that
I will
scene went
say that
on.
like oh you go.
I was gonna say that scene went on for like 10 minutes, and it just really didn't serve any purpose.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was just like an action scene, but like I will say that like Wolverine like pitting on the cow, that is not like inherently really related to the fight itself because Wolverine pinning on the cow is kind of like part of his character arc. Like I said, which is this is why it's kind of like an unrefined detail, not unrefined detail, but like it's kind of like an unrefined part of his arc. Like him pinning on the cow is like him fully embracing being an X-Men since his whole dilemma is that he's running away from the X Men, and the moment he puts on the cowl, he's finally embracing being an X Men. It's just,
That's fair.
it's just that
But I
it's
think it would have
unrefined.
made more sense. I think it would have made more sense when they were attacking Cassandra, because remember the night before, when Laura and Logan were talking, Logan was like, the only, he was crying. I was about to get emotional. That was a really good scene. When he's talking about, what happened to the X-Men and the fact that he failed to save them. How he didn't really want to help them fight Cassandra, but when it's revealed that he was in the car with them too, when he didn't really, well, we knew he was there, but of course, the characters didn't. I think that would have been a cool moment too to put it on. I thought that would have made a little bit more sense, considering what had happened the night before and the fact that Laura was kind of the one who brought him to kind of embrace who he is. But
I suppose I
I
can
don't
see
know.
that. I just
I
like
don't
to
know.
me, I think if he put it on there, it'd be paced a little bit quickly because that just happened. And just I don't know. I feel like it'd be more payoff if that was like the big moment to happen towards the end of the movie. But I don't know.
Right. It was still cool regardless, but in my opinion, I feel like it would have meant more because he's fighting with Laura and he's fighting with, I don't want to say the new X-Men, but I mean, had Wolverine not, been with them, Gambit, Blade, Elektra, all them to fight Cassandra, it's like, who knows if they could have survived. But I don't know. I thought it would have been symbolic with his journey if that was where the mask was put on. but at least he wore it, and that is all that matters. And he wore it for a good amount of time too. So that was really fun to see.
Yep.
Um,
Speaking
what
of
else?
Cal, would you like to talk about like, the costume design for some of the characters? Because I thought
Yeah,
that the costume design for a lot of characters was done really well. I think Deadpool's is way better than the first two movies. In the first
right.
two
It's
movies,
it's
it
a
kind of looks
brighter
like
red.
it's like he's like too dark toned red in the first two, but like in the new one, he's much more brighter. I'm not gonna really say he's
Right.
like comic accurate because it is like a canonical thing in the comics that like Deadpool's design is just like inconsistent because no one really cares to keep that keeps up with the color palette or the how many pouches he has or the lines he has on his costume. Like no one cares. But I will say that from the comic designs that I do know, like from like Ed McGuinness and whatnot, it kind of invoked like that. I don't know.
Right.
Wolverine, pretty good comic. Fuck. Wolverine, pretty good design. Um, Gambit's design was great.
Gambit is perfect. I don't think they could have made that. Gambit's portrayal in the film, I don't think could have been any better. It was perfect.
It's just my one gripe with Gambit's design. Those are like it's like the little head part. It kind of looks goofy on him in live action. It's like
Yeah,
everything
I
else
can
though.
see that.
Like everything else, like the chest, the coat, it looks good. It's just that like little like head thing. Yeah, it's just it
Yeah,
looks
it
weird.
it looks weird on Channing Tatum. Um, but outside of that, but that's not the costume design's fault. It's really just how the costume just fits on him. But
I mean, I
um,
guess
at least I thought it was great. Comic accurate Gambit because Gambit was in he was in X-Men Origins. Was he in any other movies? Do you know? I've
it's
not
like
seen them all, so I don't know.
he's mentioned in name in like X2, like on the computer as
Oh,
Rami LeBeau, but that's about it.
okay. Well, if you have not seen X-Men Origins, well, he's in that, but he's not comic accurate at all. His powers are comic accurate. He has his little bow staff, if that's even what it's called. His little, little staff he has. But his costume, what he's doing, none of that's accurate. He's not an X-Man. He's doesn't look anything like the comics. Um, but in this one, I assume he was an X-Men. Assume he was. Um, yeah, and of course he's comic accurate. So it was just great. I don't think they could have done him any better. Human Torch's costume was good. I know Titus, you have some thoughts on that.
I mean, I
Well,
don't
like
really have like
in
I
terms
don't
of
have any
like,
like negative thoughts on it. It's just like when we were talking about it, I just said like I felt that he was like part of like the the one in Multiverse of Madness. I thought like he had the same costume design as him, but it's like I don't have anything negative to say about it. Really, it's just that he looks rugged. He fits the whole like wasteland aesthetic that
right,
the whole junk dimension was trying to go for,
right.
and it was fine. It just I wish Johnny was more in the movie and not just like killed off for like the expense of the joke, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I didn't like. I don't mind if he dies. I just didn't like the way he died. And he really wasn't in the movie that long. And when he does the flame on thing, but it's in a battle, he ends up losing against Pyro. But I don't know. I wish he had more time in the movie. Um, but it was cool to see Chris Evans back. He did a great job. Um, I was expecting more because the joke was is when he first shows up when because he's the first person that Deadpool and Wolverine notice. He's wearing like a cloak and you can't really see what he's wearing. You can see his face, but you can't really see what he's wearing. Um, so when he shows up, Deadpool's like, "Oh, look, it's Captain America." And of course, eventually he takes the cloak off and he does the flame on thing. I don't think he took the cloak off. I don't remember. But he does and Deadpool's like, "Oh, here it comes, Avengers!" And then Human Torch says, "Flame on." That I thought that was funny. Um, that was a funny joke. Um, but yeah, I wish he had more screen time. What else? What else can we talk about? What else happened?
I was gonna
Earlier,
mention
earlier,
what's up.
you said what? Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I was gonna mention like Blade and Elektra's character design. I thought Blade's costume was pretty good. I wish that he had a trench coat, but the body armor was cool enough. Wesley Snipes was really cool to see back, even though he's old as fuck. But I think he delivered enough. Elektra, her costume I think is identical to the Elektra movie and Daredevil. I thought it was cool.
Hmm.
I think it would have been cooler if she had like a white costume, but that's just me. It was pretty decent.
Right,
Arthur Lowry
and
says Blade Wolf. I
it's
wish he used a sword though. Yeah, that's what I was hoping to. I wish he had busted out like a sword. Instead, he just had a little kata knife. But
who who Blade?
yeah, Blade. He didn't use
Oh,
his sword.
well, I don't. I don't really know much about Blade other than he fights vampires. But um,
And yeah,
I was
Jennifer
gonna
Garner.
say,
She looked great. Like she's getting up there and like she looked good as Elektra.
yeah, both of them looked good. I felt they didn't really look. Um, I mean, obviously they'd age, but like it wasn't like terrible. Um, what I was gonna say is most of the characters that like in terms of cameos that are in here, they're not like the same versions from the films, like their original films. Um, but Blade and Elektra, I think, are the exception to that. Even X-23, the one that we saw in the Void, that was a different version from the movies or from Logan. But Blade and Elektra, that I think it was confirmed that that is the same from the films or their respective films, which is cool. But I feel like Human Torch. I don't think that's definitely not the one from the original Fantastic Four films, and I don't think it's from the John Krasinski version universe. Only because I mean when when I forgot the dude's name, but when the Illuminati introduces him, he says of the Fantastic Four. I guess that could mean like he formed them. I guess it doesn't necessarily mean that doesn't mean they're still around, but I don't know. I interpreted it as they were still a thing in his universe. Um, and if Johnny Storm's not there, it's like okay, well, it's not the Fantastic Four then. But so I feel like it's just an alternate version, and they're not a part of any of those timelines. Um, but that was cool. Reed Richards got to mention. Johnny mentions him. Daredevil got to mention. The 2003 Daredevil got to mention. Ben Affleck's Daredevil. Elektra mentions how he's dead. Um, who else was mentioned? I know there were other characters mentioned.
Both two Punishers.
Right, they were mentioned too. That's right. That's right. Um, shit. I should have been taking notes, to be honest with you, while the movie's going on, because a lot of those like look Easter eggs. I don't remember them all. Um, what else? There was even a Spider-Man reference. Not really a reference, but freaking Deadpool was making like like the hand thing that Spider-Man does. He
Oh,
was
wait,
doing that, and then making the
whipping.
sound just right, and then just for jokes. Um, yeah, that little sizzle reel that they did was really good. That was really really cool. Really enjoyed it. And this movie, it's like Titus said earlier, it is not an MCU movie. It takes place in the MCU. Well, not even that. It doesn't even take place in the MCU because I mean, there was a scene that takes place in it, and the TVA, of course, from the MCU, but there's not. The movie ends with Deadpool in his own universe, so it's like this is not an MCU film. I would not consider it one. It's connected to it, but it has as much references to the MCU as like Venom does. The Venom films. It's just I don't know. I would most of it takes place either on the Void or the Fox universe. Um, so I don't know why they're saying, this is Deadpool, integrated in the MCU. He's not integrated in it at all. Um, Now it's definitely the start I feel what could turn into, the X-Men in the MCU. I mean, they're making an X-Men film. I don't know how much involvement Hugh and Ryan will have, but we'll have to see. But we haven't mentioned probably the biggest criticism that Titus and I both have for the movie. Its placement in the timeline, in the Fox universe. I'm gonna let Titus. Do you want to explain it? Because I think you'll do it better than I will. But
It's about like the beginning of the movie. I don't know. I don't
in
think that was like
terms
the
of
most
like,
like egregious complaint. I just think that like it was like a plot hole that I just kind of like noticed. But like I don't think Ryan Reynolds or like the other writers on it, I don't think they cared enough. What I'm talking about is that the film it opens up with like Deadpool playing with Logan's dead body. And we are told that this is 6 years after Deadpool 2. So this is in 2024. This is not 2029, which Logan dies. So what I'm thinking is like, I mean, how could he play a dead man's body who hasn't died yet? Like Wolverine is really living at his time, and I immediately caught on because ironically, I did not see the opening because I came in late in my theater. It's just like in the scene where it's like, oh, your anchor being has died, and I was kind of scratching my head because I mean, he hasn't died yet. He dies in like a few years, but not now. And that just hit me like this. It literally just like a plot where they just ignore like the time placement of Logan versus the Deadpool movie, and
right,
it also sticks to the end where like X-23 shows up at Deadpool's little table, and it can't be the one from like the Void because we're never like shown her being resurrected. Nothing that do like an off-screen thing. Just that is in itself is kind of
right,
problematic. And we're just supposed to assume that, well, I guess S23 from Logan just found her way to Wade Wilson's house. Like I guess she just found her way to his house some way somehow.
right,
It's just I don't know, man. That was kind of weird to me.
right. It's my biggest complaint for it because it just doesn't make sense. And then you mentioned when we were talking about it earlier. You said because like let's say the film is set like shortly after the events of Logan, it still really wouldn't make sense because mutants aren't really a thing anymore. I mean, they still are, but they're not like common, and definitely the X Men aren't around anymore. But
Right.
in Deadpool and Wolverine, Negasonic Teenage Warhead's in it. You
And
the
Colossus.
Colossus, and then
And
the
what's her
girlfriend, I don't
name?
remember her name.
Yukio.
Right, Yukio.
And it's just
So it's like
it's kind of weird because like in Logan they're all in Eden.
right,
And that kind of leads like to my next thing, like X-23 is like, I mean, I thought she's supposed to be in Eden. I mean, why the fuck is she at Wade Wilson's like apartment?
right. It's it is a big plot hole. Um, like for me, it may not be a big deal for as big a deal for Titus, but for me, it's like okay, that because Logan's a great movie, so it's like I don't know, man. It's like it's like they wanted to connect to it so much, but they ended up kind of just ruining the timeline. Um, and then I mean, what I also find is kind of funny is everyone that died, not everyone, but a lot of the people that died in the last movie. So Vanessa and some members of the X Force, they're back in Deadpool 3 and explained that Deadpool used Cable's time machine to bring them all back. Okay, Yeah, I don't know. It just felt like Deadpool 2 now has like not that I like really the movie to begin with, but it's like what's I mean, it's like what the hell's the point of that movie? You're gonna go back in time and save everybody. Um, and then what I also had a problem with is in the beginning of the movie, Deadpool meets with Happy Hogan to talk about Deadpool joining the Avengers. Um, and he's at Earth, well, MCU's Earth. They call it 616. I don't call it that. I call it, Earth 1999999 or how many nines it were. But um how and it's like the question is how did Deadpool get there? How did he get to a different Earth? Um I mean, but from what I researched, it was explained to use Cable's time machine. But time machines don't take you to different universes. They take you in the past or the future. They don't take you to other universes. There's a difference there. Um, but anyway, that's yeah. Those are some of my biggest complaints. Is the whole timeline thing, or at least the in terms of Logan. Um, but Brendan said he liked it. I have not seen anything else from the MCU post WandaVision because I don't care about it anymore. Not that I really cared about to begin with, but it was a good movie, but it has problems. It has tons of plot holes in it. Um, it doesn't make sense as an MCU film because the MCU has barely anything to do with it. Um, I don't like the TVA. I thought the TVA just looked over the MCU. Now it's looking over the whole multiverse. I have not seen Loki. Maybe it was established in there. I don't know. I also don't like how the MCU is now called the Sacred Timeline. I know that was already previously established, but why is this now you know, the most important universe? I don't know. The most important universe, is the comic 616. In my opinion. Um, but yeah, that's all. That's all I got to say about it. Titus, you got anything else? Titus, you still there?
Nah, I ain't got much to say.
Well, chat. How do y'all feeling about it? I know Arthur seemed to like it. Brandon liked it. Nameless says Deadpool 2 is ranked third for my first rank of the Deadpool films. Yeah, I would say in terms of ranking the Deadpool films, Deadpool and Wolverine is one because it's actually good. I don't think the other two are good. Deadpool 1 is next, and then Deadpool 2 is last. Um, but I think that's all we've got. Um, Chad, if you want to stay around a little longer to talk, we'll do that. Um, but if not, Chad doesn't really have anything else to say that I'm probably just going to end the stream. um, Favorite cameo for me, I'll go ahead. It's a Gambit. I mean, that shit was awesome. Um, Titus, what would you say is your favorite cameo in the film?
Um, my favorite cameo would probably be Blade or um, I don't know, Blade or Gambit. I don't really know.
Yeah, Gambit. I will say this: I was spoiled on Human Torch being in it. I was spoiled on that. Um, but Gambit, I wasn't. Um, and like I said earlier, huge X-Men fan. Well, starting to be a huge fan. It's kind of hard to say that, but like I am going through the Claremont run for the first time. Um, and I've been loving it so far. But Gambit was awesome. He was comic accurate. He sounded great. He looked great. His combat scenes were great. It was just awesome. It was awesome seeing him in it. Arthur's favorite was Blade. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Titus, thank you so much for joining and reviewing it with me. And thank everybody else for joining in the chat. Appreciate y'all commenting and watching. See you guys next time. Bye bye.